The story of Saint Margaret of Castello reminds us of the importance of embracing our differences, recognizing the value in each person, and using our gifts to serve others. Saint Margaret's life is one of the most heart-wrenching stories in the calendar of the saints. She reminds us that no matter what challenges or limitations we face in life, we can still live a life of purpose and make a positive impact on the world. Saint Margaret of Castello was a 13th century Catholic saint born in Italy to noble parents. However, she was born with physical disabilities, including being blind and hunchbacked. And her noble and rich parents could not bear a disgrace that offended the family's pride. This led her parents to reject her and abandon her at a church. Some women of Castello found the terrified child and took care of her until they could arrange for her to be adopted. Soon, another family took charge of her, and then another, sheltering and feeding her until she became practically the adopted child of the village. One and all declared that far from being a burden, little Margaret brought a blessing upon those who befriended her. As Margaret grew up, she embraced her disabilities as a gift from God and saw them as a means to deepen her faith and relationship with Him. Some years later, the nuns of a recently opened local convent offered her a home. The girl rejoiced at the prospect of living with the religious, but her joy was short-lived. She was in for a disappointment. The nuns were lax in keeping the rule of their order, and even in keeping the routine of daily prayer and meditation. Margaret, on the other hand, was intensely devout. The lack of fervor in her sisters surprised and confused her, while Margaret's zeal made the nuns self-conscious, angry, and resentful. Ultimately, the superior of the convent asked Margaret to leave. She returned to her adoptive parents and at age 15 joined the Third Order of St. Dominic, which permitted her to wear the habit and take the vows of a nun, but still live at home where she felt loved and secure. Margaret's disabilities did not make her bitter. Rather, she became one of the most generous, sympathetic people in Castello. She lived a life of poverty, relying on the charity of others. She was known for her acts of kindness and compassion towards those who were also marginalized and neglected. Margaret said that in the sufferings of her neighbors, she saw the image of the suffering Christ. As for her own disabilities, she regarded them as a means to unite her pain with the pain Christ endured on the cross. She once made a profound influence on a group of prisoners when she was elevated some 20 inches off the ground in ecstatic prayer, and her poor face was transformed in beauty. This was just the beginning of her mystical life. She cured another tertiary of an affliction of the eyes, which had baffled medical professionals. And her mantle extinguished a fire which had broken out in her foster parents' house. Margaret's unwavering faith and devotion inspired many, and her reputation for miracles continued to grow. One of the most remarkable stories about Saint Margaret was her encounter with a wealthy merchant who had lost all his wealth and was on the brink of poverty. Margaret prayed for him, and the next day he received a vision from God telling him to go to a certain place and retrieve a hidden treasure. The man followed the vision, found the treasure, and was able to restore his wealth and prosperity. The man was so grateful that he later built a church in honor of Saint Margaret after her death. In her desire to show her gratitude to the people of Castello, she undertook to look after the children while their parents were at work. Her little school prospered wonderfully, for she understood children, being very simple herself. She set them little tasks which she helped them to perform. She instructed them in their duty to God and to man, instilling into them her own great devotion to the sacred childhood. Thus she lived, practically unknown outside her own neighborhood, until the age of 33, when she died amidst the friends who loved her. Saint Margaret of Castello's legacy continues to inspire people today, as she represents the power of faith, devotion, and compassion in the face of adversity. Her feast day is celebrated on April 20th. Oh, Blessed Margaret of Castello, you turned to God in prayer with confidence and trust. Through continual prayer, you accepted your misfortunes. Obtain for me the grace to persevere in my prayer, confident that God will give me the help to carry whatever cross comes into my life. Blessed Margaret of Castello, pray for us.